Haja no Fuuin is a bit of an unusual one. It's an RPG alright, but it doesn't quite fit in the same mold that we've been seeing. There's a few distinctive things about it. First, unlike 90% of the RPGs we're going to see, this one has been localized to the US. It has a release on the Sega Master System, though that version has considerable differences. Haja no Fuuin started as a computer game, and is remembered for exactly two things. That's the final boss on the cover, and yes, she is topless in the game as well. If you go searching for this game on the Japanese side of the web, you'll find plenty of results, and they'll all be pictures of her. So you might not want to do that at work. A fun thing about this game is that the Famicom version came with a metal miniature and a cloth map. The miniature had a bad tendency to get lost, and so copies with it can be a little bit pricey, but you can get a copy with just the map for about $15. The map's actually pretty useful for the game too. The grid squares on it are all one step. Not all features of the game world are on the map too. You'll find towns and castles that aren't represented. There's a lot of interestingly named regions on the map too. The plains you start on are called Phosphorus. The bay right below them is called Gorgon. There's a lake called Callipolis, and a valley called Kerberos. It's definitely a situation of picking out Greek words and just putting them down on a map. The title of the game means Haja's seal, and that's been broken at the start of the game. That's letting monsters flood into the world, and so Argus is selected to go forth and get the evil seal so that they can close up the worlds again. The game plops you down in the lower left-hand corner of the map with a sword, armor, and 10,000 gold. The rest is up to you. While you're exploring on the map, you get a view of the surrounding area, and you can see a castle or town or a person you might encounter in the distance. Press A when you see one to go to it. Occasionally, if the figure is a monster, it will just attack you. But that's actually pretty uncommon. So this is going to be a common statement for me as I go over these RPGs, but Haja no Fuuin is really grindy. You'll need to grind for about half an hour before you can leave the starting area, and then you'll have to grind for about 45 minutes to move on to the next spot after that. I know from screenshots that you eventually pick up companions, but I was still hours away from getting those based on the guide I was following. Let's walk through an encounter. We've just spotted somebody, so let's hit A to bring it up. First thing to work out is if they're friendly or hostile. Once you've encountered things a few times, you'll have a good idea. If it's a friendly human, you could talk to them, or you could threaten them. If you threaten somebody, they'll remember it later, too. You can try talking to everybody, but some things will attack you. The number below the characters that you encounter are their hit points. And the status area at the bottom of the screen shows the condition of your weapons and armor in their color, then your hit points, and your experience points. If you don't think you can take them, run is the top option, though they might get a swipe in at you too. The bottom option is how you attack, and you also have to select which character you want to attack with. Naturally, there's only one option there for a while. You'll rush the enemy, bounce off them, and you'll both take a bit of damage. When you defeat a monster, you only get fame. But if you defeat a human being, you'll get a little bit of money. And the economy in this game is a little bit odd. If you don't pick up on a couple key tricks, you're probably going to wind up broke. First, these big bald guys, you can freely attack them and they carry a lot of cash. These swordsmen are also bad guys, but they don't carry very much cash on them. A second tip is that it costs $1,500 to get 10 potions that will heal you to full health. It costs you about 2 gold per hit point that you're going to heal. So if you can afford to heal by potions, it's a little bit more efficient. And speaking of healing, let's talk about towns. When you go into a town, the first option you have is to speak with the Elder. He'll demand 500 gold to fill you in on something that's happening in the area. Below that is the Armorer. I'll come back to him in a moment. Then there's the Healer, where you can pay to get healed immediately or buy some potions. And then the blacksmith. Some towns also have a bar where you can pick up tips. Now every time that you hit something or get hit, your equipment degrades. The blacksmith can repair your sword, but your armor just eventually decays to nothing. So you'll have to buy replacements from time to time. All of these services are pretty expensive, and money is actually relatively rare, so it's going to feel like you're not making a whole lot of progress financially. While you're exploring the world, there's a couple things to be aware of. Weaker monsters tend to appear in the grassy areas, then it's a step up for the forest and deserts, and another step up for the mountains. You can swim, but you lose health for every step you take in a square of water, and you could also get swept away by a current. Some of the castles you encounter will only have a monster in them, and there's a few spots where the monsters are annoyingly persistent. You can press select from the map screen, and that brings up a very convenient shorthand status screen that shows you what your reputation is and the condition of all of your equipment. You can also press B to bring up a menu. There's an option for goods that you have, which I never reached in the game. You can use one of your potions from here, and you can also go to save your game, and saving in this case means password. You can do that anytime that you're not in a square with an encounter. If you've been wondering why the fairy's there, it's who provides you the background information on what's happening. Although it never says,
"Hey, listen!"
In Japan, Haja no Fuuin seems to have a bit of a mixed reputation. People like the freeform exploration style of game, but found it to be extremely grindy. And the dungeons that you find are all as large as the overworld, though apparently the final dungeon level has a special thing about it. If you map it out, it's a drawing of the final boss. And yes, she's naked. I think I have to agree with the general assessment. There's a lot of clever ideas for an early RPG here, and they just get bogged down by the need to sit there and grind for about 4 hours. That said, I could see myself coming back to this one. I kinda like the weirdness, and I could always do something else as I grind.